Hey guys, welcome to Ireland Crimes and Mysteries, the podcast channel that takes you on a journey through the dark and mysterious side of Ireland's history. From infamous crimes to unsolved mysteries, we explore the stories that have captivated and intrigued people to this very day. Join us as we uncover the stories behind these cases. Whether you're a true crime enthusiast or a lover of all things mysterious, this is the podcast for you. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and let's explore the dark side of Ireland together. This podcast has been compiled from information gathered in the public sphere, like news articles and documentaries. Everything in this podcast is alleged unless a conviction has taken place. Today's episode takes us to Howth, a seaside village 14 kilometres from Dublin city centre. Howth is an affluent area and home to many Irish celebrities, including actor Brendan Gleeson, U2 drummer Larry Mullen, and the actress Saoirse Ronan. It is here we find a house called Rowan Hill on Wingate Road, a 4-bedroomed hillside mansion with stunning views of Dublin Bay. This was the home of 46-year-old Celine Cawley, her 50-year-old husband Eamon Lillis, and their 16-year-old daughter in 2008. Celine was a former model and Bond girl appearing in the James Bond film A View to a Kill. She founded and ran a successful production company called Toy Town Films, where she held the position of director. She produced a short film called Two Fat Ladies in 2003 and worked on London's Burning in 1985. Toy Town Films was doing well, having secured deals with companies like Diageo, Volkswagen and Coca-Cola, plus several other international contracts. Her husband Eamon worked as a producer at the company. Eamon and Celine had met in Kinsale in 1990. They had married in 1991 and welcomed their daughter in 1992. Monday the 15th of December 2008 was a lazy morning for Eamon Lillis and his wife. Business was quiet at Toy Town Films in the run-up to Christmas, so they did not have to be in the office until 2 p.m, for a meeting with their pension lawyer. According to Eamon, he woke up at 6:30 a.m. and did a workout. He made his wife and daughter a cup of tea and then went for a shower. He dropped his daughter to school at 8:30 a.m, where he bumped into an old college friend near the school and stopped for a chat which focused on the upcoming Christmas festivities. He then popped into the local newsagents called The Summit and bought the Irish Times. On his return home, he said his 3 dogs met him in the front yard, so he decided to bring them for a walk. At approximately 9:30 a.m, a neighbour stated they heard a shriek, followed 30 seconds later by another shriek, which they found unusual as it was a quiet area. This neighbour said they thought someone was in trouble. Whether they contacted Gardaí or not is unclear. However, at 10:02 a.m, a frantic 999 call was made by Eamon Lillis and picked up by the Tara Street station, stating himself and his wife Celine had been attacked and he could not find a pulse on his wife. Gardaí and paramedics rushed to the home where they found Eamon performing CPR on his wife under the direction of the emergency operator. Celine was lying on the frosty decking at the back of their house. Her body felt colder than it should have for the time stated by Lillis that she could have been lying there. She was rushed by ambulance to Beaumont Hospital where doctors were unable to save her and she was pronounced dead at 10:56 a.m. Gardaí and forensics combed the scene for clues. Celine had been found in a pool of blood with a blood-stained brick beside her body. Eamon Lillis had multiple scratches on his face and a large lump on his forehead. The nail on his ring finger had been ripped off and he had multiple abrasions to his kneecaps. He was brought in to be questioned. He stated on returning from the dog walk he was greeted by a frightening scene. A man wearing a black ski mask was standing over Celine with a brick in his hand. He said he ran to her defence shouting at the assailant as he approached him. The attacker turned towards him wielding the brick. In the confusion of the moment and the ensuing fracas, he said he had slipped, giving the assailant the opportunity to get away, jumping the fence and escaping. He described the attacker as being the same height as himself, approximately 5'11", but stated the brick-wielding attacker was stronger. He was wearing a grey bomber jacket with black sleeves, a pair of jeans, gloves and a black ski mask. He said he was right-handed and thought he recognised him as the same person who had previously robbed the house and gave a local man's name to Gardaí. While he was at the Garda station, Eamon asked to use the bathroom. Gardaí asked him not to wash his hands, but he said he had already done so at the house. He handed over his clothes, stating that these were the ones he was wearing that morning: a grey sweatshirt, grey t-shirt and green combat trousers. He also said Celine had put up a fight, saying, quote, "She was a fighter, a tough nut. She would have confronted someone. She was no wallflower." While the investigation was going on, the house was off limits, so Eamon and his daughter were staying with Celine's brother. Eamon's story soon began to show cracks as the Garda investigation continued. They had gained possession of the CCTV from the Summit newsagents. This showed he was wearing completely different clothes to the ones he was wearing when Gardaí arrived at his home, the ones he had given to the Gardaí. He never stated he had changed his clothes at any stage. In the CCTV, he was wearing jeans and a black jumper. Gardaí had also ascertained that both Eamon and Celine had two separate bedrooms, which he had told them was only a temporary arrangement as Celine had a cold. But this was not the case when Gardaí investigated the house. It was obvious this was a permanent, long-term arrangement. In his bedroom, they found some of the clothes he had been wearing in the CCTV: a Gap polo shirt and a pair of boots with blood on them. A watch was found on his bedside locker, which was smeared with what was later noted to be blood. Blood was also found between the links, and also the remains of tissue paper. In the attic, hidden under various items, a suitcase was found which contained a black bin bag. Its contents included heavily blood-stained jeans, a V-neck jumper, boxers and white socks. They also found gloves, marigolds and lots of blood-stained tissues. This blood would later be found to be Celine's. A handwritten note was also found which read, "She will not get that wedding dress. She will marry Kay next June. She will send out invites next January. You will never be with her properly. The only way you can be with her is to live here. Think of the positives in the relationship. You will never take her to France. She will never share your bed. You are running out of time." Gardaí interviewed a 31-year-old masseuse, originally from Tipperary, that worked at a local beauty clinic in Howth. She stated that Eamon and her had embarked on an affair, which had been going on for the previous 10 weeks, despite him being married and she being engaged to be married. She said she'd been giving Eamon weekly massages after Celine had recommended her to Eamon. During one session, he was lying on his back while she massaged his chest area. She stated he kept his eyes open, which she found a little odd. He asked her what she was thinking, and she took his hand and placed it on her neck pulse and replied, "That's what I'm thinking," before walking out of the room. A week later, they shared their first kiss at her place of work, and the affair began to progress. On the following Monday, while Celine and her daughter were in the UK, she visited the house. Eamon gave her a phone so they could keep in contact, which they did daily via text. Mondays became their meet-up days as it was her day off. They had arranged to meet on the day of the murder. Gardaí arrested Eamon on the 20th of December at his brother-in-law's house at 6:55 a.m. He asked the Gardaí as they arrested him, "What is the basis for this?" Celine's funeral was held on the 23rd of December 2008 at the Church of the Assumption. Her daughter was comforted by family, including her grandfather, her aunts and uncles. There was a huge turnout, and the streets from the church to Glasnevin Cemetery, where Celine was laid to rest, were lined with people, all there to support the grief-stricken family. Meanwhile, Eamon was in custody and being interviewed by Gardaí. He told the Gardaí he had a very close relationship with his wife. He said she was a tower of strength to him, and denied they had a sexless marriage, and also denied having the affair. He stated they had separate bedrooms out of habit, as when their daughter was born they decided it was the only way they would get a good night's sleep. He said Celine was also a snorer and trashed around in the bed, so it suited them to sleep separately. They asked him if he loved his wife and he replied, "God, yes." When asked if he was unhappy within the marriage, he replied, "No comment." After prolonged questioning, he finally admitted to the affair, but said it had nothing to do with what had happened and referred to it as some sort of midlife crisis. He said he never wanted to break up his family and denied Celine had found out about the affair. When asked if Celine was the more dominant person in the relationship, he said, no. Gardaí put it to him that he was a second-class citizen in the marriage, earning €100,000 to Celine's €500,000 a year. He denied that. He also denied discussing divorcing his wife with his mistress. He did not waver from his intruder story throughout Garda interviews, despite the amount of evidence put before him. He stated he changed his clothes to take the dogs for a walk and that he had passed out after being attacked. He said he heard one of the dogs barking in the house, which led him to believe there was a second person in the house cleaning up, which to him explained all the bloodstained tissues. He could not explain the bloodstained clothes Gardaí had found, saying he had left his clothes in the kitchen when he had changed. Gardaí asked him why the top he had given them had bloodstains on the inside, which could have only come from his body, and alluded to the theory he had taken off the bloodstained clothes. He stated, "I have nothing to say about that." He said the scratches on his face were made by Celine when he raised her arm to check her pulse. He said they'd been made accidentally as she had sharp nails. He said the note found was from a short story he was working on about doomed love, but said it was based on personal experience. A phone found in one of Eamon's pockets was missing its SIM card. It had probably been discarded. The phone only contained incoming texts. All outgoing texts could not be retrieved. Another 2 mobiles and 3 SIM cards belonging to him were examined, as well as 2 mobile phones containing SIM cards belonging to the mistress. Eamon Lillis's trial took place in February 2010 in the Criminal Courts of Justice on Dublin's Parkgate Street after he pleaded not guilty. The first murder trial in the new building. The trial lasted 4 weeks. The defence tried to portray Celine as a ruthless, domineering businesswoman, something her family and all who knew her emphatically deny. They said she was a warm and generous, hard-working and able woman and was deeply loved. One friend said, "Why is it when a woman is good at something, people take swipes?" Christmas presents she had bought for all her staff and their partners had been found in the boardroom of her office building after her murder, showing how thoughtful Celine was. A bittersweet find indeed. It was also revealed at the trial that Eamon and his mistress had exchanged more than 200 text messages and 90 calls in the fortnight before Celine's murder. The first known contact between them recorded on the 2nd of November 2008. A couple of the texts found on his mobile phone were read out in court, including the following texts from the night before the murder. From his mistress. "Transporter 3 good. Love, Jason Stratham. You staying at home tomorrow? Kay going to the office for part of the morning, so can meet you somewhere. Miss you so much, X." Then 3 minutes later she sent a text saying, "No pressure though, okay?" And the following 2 minutes later, "Well, as usual I'll have to play it by ear, but we'll contact you as soon as possible in the morning. Night, my love. I love you to infinity. Sleep well, X." The first text sent from her on the morning of the murder at 9:53 a.m. read, "Keep ML if you can, X." Another one then at 10:26 a.m. said, "Everything okay?" And the final one at 11:14 a.m. said, "Getting a bit worried now, babe, X." She also sent 2 text messages on the 16th of December, the day after the murder. The first one reading, "I'm not abandoning you. You need to concentrate on your daughter and what's happening to you. To do this, I don't think we should have any contact until things calm down, for both our sakes. I know you'll understand. Everyone's looking for a story. This is not an easy decision for me to make. We'll be thinking of you every step of the way, X. And the last text message sent by the mistress at 11:11 p.m. that night read, I want you to know I still feel the same, okay? I'll keep those appointments for you in case you need them. I'll see you at the funeral. Best of luck with everything. Ultimately, Eamon Lillis was found guilty and was jailed for 6 years and 11 months and detained at Clover Hill Prison, but served just over 5 years and was out in April 2015 with good behaviour and remission taken into account. In her victim impact statement, Celine Cawley's sister said life for the family would never be the same. She said her good-humoured, roguish, fun, compassionate and caring sister was now entirely deleted from her mind, and in her place was a battered, shaven-headed body with 18 facial injuries. A woman slipping in blood as she fights for her life on the patio of the house of her dreams. She explained the depth of anguish and terrifying realisation that they would never really know what happened to Celine. She said their suffering was compounded by the lies told by the killer, saying that the treacherous lies was overwhelming, especially the lie about the intruder. A statement which Eamon had earlier retracted, stating he had made it all up to prevent his daughter knowing about the violent row between her parents. A bitter legal dispute followed in the High Court after his conviction. Celine's brother and sister, working on their niece's behalf, tried to stop Eamon from inheriting half of everything jointly owned by Celine and himself. A legal loophole meant he was still entitled to his share despite his conviction for murder. The court found in his favour that he was entitled to half of the estate worth nearly $2 million. His daughter inherited the other half. After this, the family called for an urgent change to the legislation, saying other families should not have to go through the same ordeal as they had gone through, an expensive and emotionally draining court case which ultimately went in the convicted killer's favour. Celine's law, as it was dubbed, a law preventing killers from profiting from their crimes, was put before the government in 2018, but to date has not been brought into law. After his release, Eamon went to England and stayed with his sister for a while. He returned to Ireland and bought a house near the house he had shared with his wife and daughter, hoping to rekindle relationships with the family, but unsurprisingly none of them wanted anything to do with him. He later sold the house and has now left the country. Current whereabouts unknown. Some think he is living in England, while others speculate he is living in mainland Europe. Either way, he has the funds to start a new life, something Celine will never be able to do, and I'm sure their daughter found hard to do after losing her mother at the hands of her father. Little is known about what happened to Eamon's mistress after the court case had concluded. Gardaí had gone to great pains to keep her identity a secret, and she was living with a relative to try and escape any publicity, but photos of her had appeared in various newspapers during the trial. I'm sure she didn't anticipate what transpired and lives with her own regrets to this day. Ultimately, despite Eamon gaining monetarily from the brutal death of his wife, there are no winners in this case. A beautiful, hard-working woman lost her life. A loving daughter lost her mother and her father. The wider family decimated. Life will never be the same again for any of them. And at the end of the day, we can only ask why. What did any of this achieve? But I know we will never know or understand the answer, because for most people, this course of action is so out of our thought process, we could never imagine or comprehend entertaining such an approach. All we can hope is that Celine's family finds some sort of peace in their lives going forward. So guys, thanks for joining me on Ireland Crimes and Mysteries today. I hope you enjoyed exploring the darker side of Ireland with me. If you have any suggestions for future episodes or would like to share your thoughts on the cases we've covered, please feel free to leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to stay up to date for all my latest episodes. Until our next investigation, keep your eyes open and your mind curious.